It's Ray. Welcome to the Republic.
So Neon has done a really good job marketing this movie. People are flocking to watch it. It has far exceeded expectations of like a 7 mil opening weekend to I think like 22 mil, which if you think about it is almost triple its projections. So yeah, Neon's marketing team, good job. It's touted as the horror movie of the season. I also want to add that I actually went to watch this despite not being a huge horror movie fan, but I'm also not a huge fan of any genres of films. I just like watching films, and this one looked interesting. And yeah, it's the latest Nick Cage. Let's give it a chance. Let's see what he brings to the table this time. Marketing had him heard but not seen in the movie, and this persists to halfway through the movie as well. You mostly hear him or see parts of him, but you don't really see his face till halfway through the movie. This also means that expectations are kind of high for Nick Cage's character by the time you do meet him in the movie, and a certain amount of scary is to be expected. But really, he's more creepy than scary. Even within the story world, when he met a girl in a hardware store, she's creeped out, but she's not scared. She just yells for her daddy and calls it a day. She's just like, "Daddy, the creepy guy is back again." And that's it. And that's pretty much the vibe for for the character itself. So good job, Neon, for marketing a horror film and actually managing to make it seem scarier than what it is. If you like slashes, if you like watching horror movies for the adrenaline rush, if you like horror movies to be scared, I don't think this is the movie for you. Because this movie, like its character's design, is very much creepy more than scary. Creepy in terms of like, creepy, but also creep-y in terms of like, they lets the fear creep into you, and the story kind of progresses that way and letting it kind of worm into you that way. So there's that. But also, I would argue that this is not a horror movie. This is a tragedy masked as a horror movie. Sure, we can categorize Longlegs as a horror film for all the obvious reasons. It's got satanic worship, it's got bloody deaths, it's got that red lighting that you see in horror films, and horror films only apparently. It's got a big bad guy terrorizing a darling protagonist and sending her on this quest, and there is a lot of creepy music. But here's why I think Longlegs is really more of a tragedy than a horror. It's a tragedy of a mother's love that's twisted, and the price the kid ends up paying for it. It's a tragedy that way because the person that should be paying the price does not end up doing it, and it's an innocent party who does it. What this film really is about a mother's love and how he ended up twisted. Lee's mom argues that everything she has done in the name for letting Lee grow up without having to pay the price of knowing about Longlegs. But at the end of the day, it is her actions and the consequences of these actions that has led Lee to the point where she is in the movie, and eventually having to do what she has to do. She may have grown up loved, but she certainly wasn't happy. And she certainly wasn't happy investigating this case, and did not end the movie happy because she had to kill her mom. So, tragedy. Very, very sad. So here's another gripe that I have with the film's synopsis and marketing, is that it keeps saying that the protagonist is psychic, except I thoroughly disagree. I don't think she's psychic as much as she has repressed trauma. Sure, the film has an initial setup where she's investigating a case and correctly identifies the house the killer is in based on nothing but an intuition, a feeling. However, it is a setup that is flimsy at best, easily dismissible as a fluke, and honestly really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things at the end of the day. Everything else in the film occurs within the case of Longlegs, and if the story just needed her to know certain things, it could have dropped the initial setup and still had gotten away with it. Like, I feel like we would have still bought that she would have known certain things. The killer's headquarters was in the basement of her childhood home. Her mom is the right-hand woman to Longlegs. The director even chooses to show us a scene where Charlie is watching her mom get brutalized by Longlegs, and then Longlegs disappears from her memory as she only sees her mom. Like, baby girl is traumatized with a capital T, and that would have definitely been able to explain away the intuition or certain feeling she has about the case as she's investigating it. She's also portrayed to be intelligent. Like, the suspension of disbelief is not going to be that far-fetched. I also have a bone to pick with the ending. I'm not quite sure why they decided to end it with her running out of bullets and making it very clear that she had ran out of bullets, instead of going for perhaps a more ambiguous ending, an Inception-esque ending, if you may, where perhaps we heard the first click of the gun and then it cuts to black. If we hear the first click of the gun, it creates doubt. What, did she run out of bullets? Or was that a malfunction? Did she actually blow the doll's brains out? Is Miss Ruby going to be safe? Is Lee going to be safe? I'd much rather have those questions leaving the cinema than, why did you have her run out of bullets? Like, why? If this film truly, if I want to hit home the point that this film truly is a tragedy, that would have been it, where she can't even destroy the thing that she wanted to destroy and bring her some kind of closure. I don't know, it was a very strange choice to leave your protagonist stranded like that. It's a good script at the end of the day. It fulfills the need of an inevitable twist. You know there's a twist coming, and it delivers, and you're like, ah, yes, that checks out, that makes sense. Hints were being dropped all around. I thought it was a little suspicious that the detective's kid, like, if you're a detective's kid, I feel like you'd be a lot more curious, but the kid was very giving and trusting, and he immediately invited Lee to her birthday party, which seems a tad bit too convenient for what happens at the end of the movie. Also, why 14? Why, like, you know, why not just play into the horror movie expectation and make it 13 every 13th day of the month? You already harped on and on about how the titular character Longlegs is into satanism. The number 13 is linked to it. Why not just make it that way? Why 14? The director had said that they had picked that word simply because it was a weird word. It was vintage. It was not a word that people were throwing around a lot. But to make that the title of your movie and have it just kind of not mean anything feels cheap. Also, I'm not making up the thing about Longlegs not really meaning anything, because the writer-director themselves have said that they just liked the word and used it because it felt creepy. So it doesn't actually really mean anything. And as somebody who does like films where everything means something and every decision is thought out, to have the title of your film actually not mean anything other than the fact that it was a pretty word that I thought was apt. Lame. So I love watching films in cinemas because this might come as a shock to you, but films are actually meant to be watched in cinemas on the big screen so that you can see it for all that it's worth. And this was definitely a film that knew it was meant for the big screen and designed and shot itself that way. It was giving, ooh, look at me and all my ultra wides. Look at all these wide shots that isolate our lead and make her look increasingly smaller as the film progresses and gets more and more chaotic, so she shrinks in comparison. I loved it. I also really like the approach of putting the flashbacks in the 16mm aspect ratio. Makes it a clean way of distinguishing what's happening in the present and what's happening in the past. Other than the 16mm aspect ratio, the flashbacks also lit really warm in comparison. It's like, you know, as long as it's got that orangey sepia tint, that it must be in the past, where people don't know what color temperature it is, or perhaps knew it a little too well. It was warm. And there's a lot of reds in this movie too. I mean, probably because it's a horror. And then, you know, the present day was lit cold in comparison, because, you know, like, the present day has to be cold and sharp, like HD, because it was invented in the present day. I mean, I jest, but I do appreciate the distinguishing. For example, the jetty from the BBC, it's got two timelines, like now and 17 years ago, but you absolutely cannot tell the difference. Not just in the way it's shot, but also in the costuming and the design. You don't see Longlegs' face till halfway through the movie. Previously, before that, you see him in flashbacks, and because it's the 16mm ratio, you can imagine him to be a far larger looming figure than he actually is, which, if you think of Longlegs, you might imagine him to be really tall, and that definitely plays out in the film's favor. Other than that, I think the cinematography was aight in the sense that it met but did not exceed expectations for a movie of this genre and of this caliber. I would also argue the same for editing. I would say production design for this film, like the cinematography and editing, met but did not exceed expectations. The ones that stood out to me was Lee's mom's house, which then turned out to be headquarters for Longlegs. That's the basement. But still, it was cluttered. It was cluttered, but it was curated clutter, you know? Like, it was cluttered in such a way that was meant to make Lee look small. And compare that with the ultra wides, it's like you're used to seeing all this space, and then as the film gets more and more chaotic, as the film progresses further, and you see her in the house more, and things get more and more cluttered, she definitely looks more and more isolated and alone and just a mess in the mess. I do have a question though. In the iconic marketing shot of her getting blood splattered on her, how did makeup and special effects manage to splatter the blood all around her, but not on her per se, so much so that only a spot was on her chest and one on her face? Was that VFX? Was that done in post? Did you manage to do it practically? Because if you did, I have questions on how you managed to achieve that, because that is incredibly accurate. So in conclusion, I think this film is a tragedy. It is an okay tragedy. It is an okay horror film. It met but did not exceed expectations. A very solid B grade in my book. Will I rewatch this? Probably not. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like, follow, subscribe, help a girl out, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!